sunny Friday afternoon in October, the tranquility of one of East Hampton, New York's most exclusive neighborhoods was shattered. The $10 million estate at 82 Hedges Lane, a fortress of wealth and privacy, suddenly became a police staging ground. This was not a robbery. This was not a simple home invasion. This was the scene of a brutal, cold-blooded execution that would expose the dark. The victim was Ted Ammon, a name that meant power on Wall Street, a man who at 52 was still climbing the peak of financial aristocracy, a quiet, unassuming genius, a managing director at one of the world's most formidable investment banks, J.P. Morgan, and the founder of his own private equity firm. Ted Ammon had everything the American dream promises: vast wealth, a stunning Hamptons mansion, a beautiful, high-society wife, and 2 adorable adopted children. But that dream, we are about to discover, was a $100 million lie. Here are the facts that will shock you, that will pull you into the twisted depths of this story. Fact 1. Ted Ammon was not shot, he was not stabbed, and he was not killed in a struggle. He was ambushed and bludgeoned to death in his own bed, likely while he slept, struck repeatedly and savagely with a blunt object. His body was not discovered until nearly 40 hours after the attack. The sheer personal brutality of the crime suggested not a random thief, but a killer fueled by a deep, intimate rage. Fact 2. The prime suspects were not random. They were the 2 people who stood to gain the most, the 2 people whose lives had become inextricably and toxically linked to Ted's millions. His estranged, volatile wife, Generosa Ammon, and the new man in her life, a high school dropout, an unlicensed electrician, and a former substance abuser, Daniel Pelosi. Fact 3. When Ted was killed in October 2001, he was not just contemplating divorce. He was days away from finalizing it. The custody agreement had just been signed. The divorce settlement, which would have granted Generosa tens of millions of dollars, but ended her access to his growing fortune, was imminent. Fact 4. Despite the escalating acrimony, the Hamptons mansion showed no sign of forced entry. The person who killed Ted Ammon was either let in or they had a key. The question was, who gave it to them? And why did Generosa, only 3 months later, marry the man who police believed was the prime suspect? This is the tragedy of Ted Ammon. Chapter 1. The Golden Couple, an impossible fairy tale. To understand the brutal end, we must first understand the luminous beginning. Robert Theodore Ammon, Ted to everyone, was the quintessential self-made man. Raised outside of Buffalo, New York, the son of a machinist, he didn't inherit his position. He earned it through sheer intellectual firepower. He graduated from Princeton, secured a law degree from Yale, and quickly established himself in the cutthroat world of corporate finance, specializing in leveraged buyouts at firms like KKR and later J.P. Morgan. He was successful, but he was also reserved, almost shy, and often alone. By the mid-1980s, Ted was a rising star in New York, a quiet architect of multi-million-dollar deals. But he was missing a centerpiece for his burgeoning empire. That centerpiece arrived in the form of Generosa Martinez. They met in 1985. Generosa was an interior designer and part-time real estate broker. She was 7 years younger than Ted, with a striking California beauty and a fiery, magnetic temperament. Where Ted was deliberate and analytical, Generosa was impulsive and effervescent. She had a kind of ferocious, aggressive charm that seemed to captivate him instantly. She was the color and the chaos that his meticulously ordered life had lacked. The romance was a whirlwind. Ted, the cautious banker, was utterly besotted. They married in 1986 in a spectacular New York ceremony, immediately establishing themselves as the golden couple. Their life became a rapidly ascending monument to Gilded Age excess. Lavish apartments, custom-designed furniture, exclusive parties, and an ever-expanding collection of rare art. Generosa thrived on this stage, using Ted's fortune as her palette, painting a picture of perfection for the world. Ted's career continued to soar. He was instrumental in creating the private equity firm Chase Capital Partners, a move that secured his fortune in the nine-figure realm. His financial genius was undisputed. The combined trajectory of their wealth and their social standing seemed unstoppable. But as the years passed, the very traits that initially attracted Ted began to curdle. Generosa's enthusiasm morphed into an overwhelming obsession with material splendor and control. In 1992, they adopted twin orphans from Ukraine, a boy and a girl, whom they named Greg and Alexa. The arrival of the children should have completed the fairy tale, but instead, it marked a turning point. Generosa, struggling with the demands of motherhood, became more volatile, more controlling, and tragically began to channel her insecurities and rages toward her husband. She became deeply paranoid, accusing Ted of infidelities, questioning his every movement, and demanding complete deference from their staff, whom she hired and fired with alarming regularity. She created a suffocating, zero-tolerance atmosphere where Ted, the sophisticated Wall Street player, found himself walking on eggshells in his own home. The same man who could negotiate multi-billion-dollar mergers was now powerless against the emotional warfare waged by his own wife. Chapter 2: Behind the Gates, Cracks, and the Coming War. The Hedges Lane estate was Generosa's ultimate design project. She poured millions into turning the already opulent English Tudor into an even grander, more customized property. A project that reflected her insatiable desire for spectacle. But within the walls of this mansion, the marriage was dissolving into what was widely considered the worst divorce in the world. The cracks that had appeared in Manhattan became chasms in the Hamptons. Generosa's behavior escalated dramatically. Her paranoia was no longer just aimed at Ted. It extended to the world outside, believing staff, neighbors, and even her own legal team were conspiring against her. She began to use the children as emotional weapons, lying to them about Ted, painting him as the villain to ensure she retained both their custody and her financial claim. Ted, a man of quiet dignity and private suffering, was exhausted. For the sake of the twins, whom he adored and desperately wanted to protect, he had stayed. But in 2000, Generosa discovered a receipt for a divorce lawyer in his desk. The pretense was over. Ted's request for a civilized separation was met with a financial and emotional declaration of war. Generosa demanded an astronomical settlement, threatening to expose every private detail of their 20-year marriage to ruin his reputation. She wanted $50 million in a lump sum, along with ownership of both their New York and Hamptons homes. The divorce became a drawn-out, brutal legal street fight, fueled by Generosa's fury and her determination to punish Ted for daring to leave her kingdom. During this period of intense acrimony, Generosa made a fateful move. She purchased a second estate near Atlanta, Georgia, and briefly moved the twins there, forcing Ted to commute across the country to maintain his relationship with his children. It was a move designed to inflict maximum pain and logistical difficulty. She began showering him with money, attention, and promises of a life far beyond his wildest dreams. Pelosi, in turn, fed Generosa's rage, encouraging her to hold out for every penny in the divorce. Seeing Ted's fortune not as a settlement, but as an endless resource that he was about to tap, the Princess and the Pauper affair began, transforming rapidly from a tawdry secret into a deadly financial conspiracy. They installed surveillance equipment at the Hedges Lane estate, allowing Generosa and Pelosi to spy on Ted remotely, tracking his movements and his new quietly blossoming relationship with a woman named Catherine. As October 2001 arrived, the war was nearing its conclusion. The custody agreement was signed on the 18th. The final financial settlement was scheduled for the following week. Ted was finally going to be free, albeit at a massive financial cost. He had gone out to the Hamptons for the weekend, a final fleeting moment of peace before the end of the divorce. He was found on Monday, October 22nd. The financial clock was about to run out on Generosa, and the man who had the means, the motive, and the access to stop it had already been introduced into her life. The last hours of Ted Ammon's life were spent in his own home, unaware that the two people who stood to profit most from his death had the map, the means, and the deep, toxic resentment required to ensure the divorce would never be finalized. The scene was set for the $1 Million Nightmare. Subscribe to our channel Thriller X